Hi there, this is Mark McRae from markmcrae.com, your business mentor, coach, and advisor. And today I want to talk about failure. I know it's not a topic people normally like to talk about, but it's part of business and you will experience it at some time. And you'll experience it because it's almost impossible to grow as a business person and as a company unless you're making mistakes. And there's a very good argument to say that unless you're making mistakes and experiencing failure, you're probably not extending yourself far enough, because when you do reach, and particularly into areas where you have very little guidance, then you will make mistakes. But it brings to mind a story of a friend of mine's who I was speaking to last week, who had a business and the business failed. The business failed partly because of him and partly because of other reasons, but that's unimportant. How he dealt with it is the important thing. And he didn't deal with it very well. He became depressed, he stopped eating, he became a little bit ill, because he equated who he was as a person with the business. But actually they're two separate things. It's very easy to measure yourself with how successful your business is. But if you were a nice person before you started business, regardless of what happens to your business afterwards, whether it fails or succeeds, you'll still be a nice person. You just have to realize that. How you measure yourself in business can be very important. So don't beat yourself up, give yourself a hard time if it doesn't look like it's going well. That's normally the first indication that you're on the right track. When you meet those roadblocks, that's where other people give up. When you're trying something and it's not working, that's where everybody else gives up. You've got to get through that. And if you fall flat on your face, you've got to get back up and you've got to try again until you get it right. And somewhere along the line, if you keep trying, if you keep learning, and learning is very important, you don't want to repeat the mistakes every time. But as long as you're learning from those mistakes, don't be worried about whether it worked or it didn't work. And I know that some people, when they have a business and it's not going well, they go all in. Sometimes the right course of action is to stop. Is to stop digging. I've known quite a few people who have had a business that if they had brought someone in, if they had had a better opinion, if they could have talked to someone who was more experienced, they would have realized that that was never going to work from the beginning. And the best course of action would have been to cut the loss and then move on. But instead, they mortgage their house, they put all the money they have into it. It still doesn't work because it was destined to fail from the beginning. And I had a friend who had a restaurant. And he started the restaurant without consulting me or talking to me. Otherwise, I would advise him differently. But the way that the restaurant worked is it could seat 100 people. And after I had a look at the numbers, I realized that he had to be 80% full all of the time just to break even. Now, that's a mistake at the planning stage. But people do that sort of thing all the time. They have an idea, they'll go try it. There's no research, there's no consultation, there's no thought behind it, and it doesn't work. And instead of saying, okay, I made a mistake, it didn't, for whatever reason, they decide to plow ahead. That's also wrong. But it's a lesson learned, right? So when you learn those lessons, it doesn't mean you're less of a person. It doesn't mean that the world has ended. It just means you learn something and you're more prepared for the next adventure. And if I look back over all of the businesses that I've owned, I've made hundreds of mistakes, but I learned from most of them. So I got better over time. So one of the reasons I became successful was that learning process from my failure. But the thing I want you to remember is, it happens. The world did not end. Just pick yourself up, try again, and you will get there. So if you like this video, please subscribe, share, or like. Thanks for listening.